Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Registered Nursing Board meeting. It is November 14th, 2022, and we will take roll call to establish a quorum. My name is Dolores Trujillo. I am the current president of the Board of Registered Nursing. I was appointed by Governor Newsom into the direct provider role. Happy to be here. Vice President Mary Fagan.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Fagan. I was appointed by Governor Newsom in the Patient Care Services Administration role, and happy to be here.
Thank you. Jovita Dominguez.
Good morning. My name is Jovita Dominguez, and I was appointed by Governor Newsom in the education role.
Thank you. Elizabeth Woods.
Good morning, Elizabeth Woods. I was appointed by Governor Brown in the Nursing Advanced Practice role, and I should be being replaced pretty soon.
Thank you, Betty. Vicki Granowitz.
Hi, I'm Vicki Granowitz. I was appointed by President Pro Tempore Tony Atkins in a public member role.
Thank you, Vicki. David Lawler.
Good morning. I'm David Lawler. I was appointed by Governor Newsom in a public member role. Happy to be here. Happy Monday.
Thank you. Patricia Nguyen.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Tricia Nguyen. I was appointed by Governor Newsom in a public member role.
Thank you. Susan Naranja will be joining us a bit later. For our BRN staff, we have Loretta Melby, our executive officer. Loretta.
Thank you. I'm Lori Melby, or Loretta, and I was appointed by the board.
Thank you. And our board counsel, Reza Pejuhesh.
Good morning, everyone. Reza Pejuhesh. I am the BRN's legal counsel.
Thank you. So we've established a quorum, and BRN moderator, will you open us up for public comments for items not on the agenda?
How about general instructions first? Even though I'm
Start
sure
with that,
they're
yes.
well briefed on general instructions, but we'll do it anyways. And also, let's do this. Sorry. Good morning. This is the BRN moderator. I will be moderating the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the question and answer feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," in the question box, which is typically in the lower right of your screen. I will then call on the individual and unmute their microphone. The individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments. I will not give a warning as your time approaches. I will mute your microphone and will announce that your time has exceeded the time allotted. I will then move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. I'm sorry here. Please note that the question and answer feature is being used only as a means for members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Although this has changed, this is entirely up to the board on how they would like to react to the comments given. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of each public comment item. Finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will mute them. Thank you. All right, here we go. We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Marco Lizarraga would like to make a comment. 1 second, please.
Real quick before he starts, if this is public comment for items on a another agenda item specifically to AB 890 implementation or OPES report, we ask that public comments to hold off until that time period. This is specifically a public comment time period for items that are not on the agenda that stakeholders are asking to be placed on a future agenda. If that is what this one is about, then we can absolutely let the person go forward. Thank you.
Okay, he says he will wait. Thank you. Board President Trujillo, there are no public requests for comments. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. All right, we're moving on to item 4.0. This is to review and vote on whether to approve the previous meeting minutes. This is for August 17th, 2022. I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 17th, 2022, and allow BRN staff to make non-substantive changes to correct name, misspellings, and or typos that may be discovered in the document. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Tricia Wynn.
Thank you, Tricia. Can we open it up for public comment, please?
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give reminders as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Board President Trujillo, there are no public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Dolores Trujillo votes yes. Vice President Mary Fagan,
Mary Fagan, yes.
Elizabeth Woods,
Woods, yes.
Jovita Dominguez,
Jovita Dominguez, yes.
Patricia Wynn,
Wynn, yes.
David Lawler,
David Lawler, yes.
and Vicki Granowitz.
Vicki Granowitz, yes.
Thank you. Moving on to 5.0, this is the report of the Administrative Committee. And 5.1, Executive Officer Loretta Melby will now report.
Thank you. So on the updates for BRN, we are continuing to make recruitment and retention of staff a priority. We did have a higher vacancy rate earlier on in this year, and we have now brought that vacancy rate down to 13%. The reason that we still hold a higher vacancy rate is we are continuing to build out the continuing education provider unit. That was a unit that was developed with the last budget change proposal that was approved in 2018 or 2019, where we received additional positions for that. The difficulty that has happened with recruiting into that area is the supervising position is that of a supervising nursing education consultant. The NECs are a very difficult position to recruit and retain. And so a supervisory role of that is even greater. So we will be looking within the BRN executive team to see if there may be a better suited position or role for that so that we can get a supervisor in that unit and start to hire and build that unit out. So that might take a reorg or something of that effect, or even just a position change for that person. But we will continue to kind of look at that since we've kind of exhausted measures of just trying to see what we can do to get that unit up and running. The good thing is that our investigations unit only has one vacancy. Our enforcement unit has just minimal amounts of vacancy, nothing that affects the outcome there. And our licensing unit is well staffed also. So that to me tells us that we're moving in the right direction. We hired 8 people on November 1st. So making some big strides there with just positions and working with that through the BRN. So I just wanted to let all the supervisors and managers and executive staff know that we're grateful for all that work. It is a very difficult process to hire in and get everything moving. So great team effort there. We did hold our second annual staff meeting on November 3rd. We did that through a WebEx platform, and we opened it up to a question answer session. We did a survey afterwards to see how it went, and I'm anxiously awaiting the results to get that feedback. It did seem to go very well during it. One of the questions was actually on staffing. So again, that's another reason why I brought that staffing issue forward here, just to make sure the board is updated on that, as that was one of the items that we did update our board staff with as well. Yes.
I have a question before we go on about the
Yeah.
recruitment. Doesn't a lot of it have to do with salaries and the amount people are paid? And is there any way that those salaries can be increased?
When we're talking about the NEC positions and the supervising NEC positions, yes, salary is a huge hindrance to those positions. NECs and supervising NECs are required to be RNs first, maintain their license, have advanced skills and knowledge, and the pay is not reflective of that. Each of the NECs that come in from private sector are hired above the minimum, and that still does not make any of the pay comparable to what they can receive in private sector that's not within state service. My understanding of how wages are determined is that it goes through the state process. CalHR, they're managed through union negotiations, and that is not something that me as the executive officer or even within our team can have any great effect on those wages. We have the budget to support, and if there is a union contract change that addresses the wages at a state level with CalHR, we have the ability to support that within our current budget. But that is a process that is much higher than just at the BRN local level. The NEC position is shared amongst 2 agencies within the state. This particular NEC, there are other NEC positions. There are some NEC positions that fall under bargaining unit 21 and some NECs that fall under bargaining unit 17. That changes the wage dependent upon which bargaining unit they are under as well, and which agency is utilizing them. So it is, I believe the union reevaluates and bargains about every 3 years. And I think this fall is a bargaining year for unit 17 that is within the BRN.
It's rather complex, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yes, actually prior to me becoming the EO, when I worked as an NEC, I was one of the NECs that did represent for that request to have the NEC pay increased. Obviously, it's something I cannot be involved in at an EO position because I'm not within that union. And I hope that the NECs are able to do what they need to do to address that.
Thank you.
Thank you. After the recruitment attention, we kind of discussed about the staff meeting. Again, just the all staff meeting. I'm actually looking at increasing them. We held them 1 time a few years ago, and then we went to 2 times. And with the feedback and just maintaining a telework environment for the majority of our staff, We do see the benefit to this and are receiving a lot of really great feedback on that. So we may increase that for the next year and see if we can manage to get 3 of the all staffs in, but we will at least maintain the 2 staff, all staff meetings. The next item to discuss is kind of rolls right into that when I brought up the teleworking, is our staff have been maintained about a 60 to 75% teleworking percentage for all staff within the BRN since we went out in March of 2020. So with that, we did procure IT equipment that will support that. That's laptops, headphones, microphones, monitors, whatever is needed at that point to really support all the people that have been working at home. When we move to laptop, it allows them to VPN in, and we will no longer use the cloud, which is what we were using previously. With the cloud, it did slow down some of the people trying to access and sign on. So we're hoping that the VPN access improves that. And we do believe that it will. And so it is in the deployment process. And we will be working towards the governor's ask, which is to decrease the carbon footprint, to look at buildings that the BRN has and other state agencies has, and see what we can do to even decrease that. I did meet with DCA's director and talked about downsizing some of the spaces that we do have, and then moving to what is called a hoteling structure for people that want to come in and work in office, or they rotate in and out of office. That has been a huge morale booster to have employees working from home and maintaining a telework environment. And they have requested repeatedly for that to continue. Our productivity remains strong. Our supervisors are managing the change in work that comes with a teleworking environment. And overall, it has been a positive experience. So we wish to continue to support that with a goal of decreasing one of our sites by 2025. That is what was shared with the director. We only have 31 staff left to get on VPN. So it's been quite a feat, and thank you very much, IT staff, for managing that deployment process and letting that kind of work. The next process of improvement is the enforcement division. That was a focus of a California state audit back in 2016. And we wanted to ensure that we continue to stay on top of that and work with process improvements. So we coordinated with the OIO, which is the Organizational Improvement Office through Department of Consumer Affairs. And they are going through and mapping every single process that our enforcement unit does, starting with the beginning where a complaint is received and following it all the way through that process. They meet with staff about 8 hours every week to get that done. And so far there have been areas identified for improvement. And our management staff has looked at that and have already started making some of those improvements. And so that, to me, just kind of shows that we are on the right track and constantly looking at everything in that unit to make sure that public safety and timeliness is of the utmost focus there. With that, always looking to continue, I can speak today, sorry about that, a little tongue-tied for a moment. Continuous quality improvements throughout the organization. We did embark on the Enlighten License project. We did have 15 of the recommendations implemented prior to the report being made public. And licensing is continuing to work with improvements in that area as well. And licensing, as you all know, kind of touches every other aspect of the board too. So licensing reaches out and affects enforcement. So enforcement's had to make some changes based on the Enlighten License project. The public information unit that manages the incoming calls and the correspondence, they've had to make changes because of the recommendations in the Enlighten License project, and the NECs who get called on for consultation have had to make changes based on the Enlighten License project as well. So that project really did have an overarching effect. And we will continue to work on implementing that as we move forward. When I kind of brought up the CSA audit for the 2016 audit that happened with enforcement, we did have one of the pending recommendations, which was on the whistleblower audit that came specifically about the enforcement audit. And that pending one was to show that our investigation staff kept at 30 or lower caseloads. That has been implemented. It continues to be implemented. And we do annual updates to CSA to ensure that they are aware of all the changes and the progress that goes on there. Our assistant executive officer is covering the investigations unit right now as we recruit for a supervising special investigator position. And additionally, even when that position is full, Yvonne Leonard, our assistant executive officer, manages that. And she pulls random reports to ensure that we stay under 30. And to date, it has been maintained. We did turn that stuff in. We are hoping that CSA receives that, validates that, and can clear us from recommendation 3 on that whistleblower account. As far as the pre-licensure CSA report that happened in 2019, there were 5 outstanding recommendations to the board that continued to kind of stay out of the 9. And those have cleared over the years. We do still have 3 recommendations that we are waiting on being cleared based on a clinical facility IT product that has been developed. It has been tested. Our NECs have tested and cleared it, and they're now working with the deans and directors on a testing for that. Once that comes back and the deans and directors sign off, we will be able to implement that. We will do a data cleanup that will be statewide, and then we will publish that to our website with the intention of clearing all 3 remaining recommendations from that 2019 audit. We did just clear 1 additional recommendation last month as we turned in our annual report, and that was a regulatory update. So we did go ahead and get the regulatory updates through. And then finally, for my EO report is just really kind of talk about the regulatory updates. There has been quite a fury within our regulatory unit on updates to our regulations. We've implemented quite a few. Thank you to our Chief of Licensing coming in, Marissa Clark, and working with her team. Raz Siddiqui's been really pivotal in helping with this too. And Yvonne and myself, the assistant executive officer, and myself continue to work hands-on with that unit in DCA's Ledge Reg team as well. And you guys are familiar with that as Heather Hoganson comes into our meetings and speaks frequently. We have implemented changes to 1427, to 1432, to 1423, to 1450, and to 1456 this last year as regulatory packages. And we have a bunch of Form 100s that have gone through, which are non-substantive changes, just reorganizing, updating a form, etc., changing a title. And we will continue to work with legislative staff to bring current all of our other statutes that may need to be addressed with changing of pronouns, etc. So at that point, I open it up to any questions or comments that you guys may have, and welcome the input.
Lori, this was an impressive report, and I would like to thank you and also the BRN staff for working so hard this year to put through 5 reg packages in 1 year is phenomenal work, just phenomenal work. So thank you. Thank you for that report, and thank you to the BRN staff.
Thank you. We plan to continue with that much effort going forward. I can't guarantee 5 every year, but we'll definitely continue to try to update our regs. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we need to just kind of pluck away, slow and go so that we don't miss anything and make any errors. But it has been a long time coming. That's something that our board has not done in the past, is put that many regulatory packages through in a year. And I think, honestly, I don't think our board did many regulatory updates since 2018 until, of course, this year. So we are moving forward. So thank you, Dolores. If there's no other questions or comment from our board members,
I have a quick question. I also would like to thank the staff. It's very impressive, and I do appreciate the time commitment that goes into it, and to be open to public comment and keep trying. May I just ask, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, and I don't want to play the blame game at all, but did things just change dramatically, which resulted in a lot of new regulations being necessary, or was it just kind of deferred maintenance?
Deferred maintenance.
Okay.
Definitely.
We're all guilty of that. So yeah. Okay.
There's also some items. We did have our California State Auditor that came through in 2019. There was some regulatory updates needed from there, so we did address that. There were also some new laws that came into effect. There was an implicit bias law that required some regulatory change. There's a second implicit bias law that you'll actually be hearing about later in this meeting that came through. So there was just a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed, and just kind of going through and cleaning up. The executive team is relatively new within the BRN, and with the assistant executive officer being here the longest. And she started in July, I believe, of 2019. So that kind of speaks to the newness of the team. The remaining members of the executive leadership team have came on since 2020 forward. And so with that team, as we embark on some of these performance improvements and quality improvements, and just really getting feedback from all of BRN staff, that's something that we've really focused on eliciting, just really looking at that. We have asked for, what better serves them, what can make this go well and go better. And then just really hearing the feedback from the consumers that call in, that email us in. I know the staff wasn't really excited when I put our emails out on our website, and it makes it directly accessible to us. But that has been a huge eye-opener. When people email and say, this is what we're running into, and it really just kind of puts a spotlight on stuff that we had to improve. The majority of our improvements really needed to focus within licensing, and really just kind of looking at what we can do to decrease the amount of items that have to be turned in that could be made deficient if not received. And that then in turn helps us to improve our processing times, as well as just a lot of IT improvements. I think we hired a consultant 2 years ago that's specific for IT with us to kind of work our processes through. And we will continue to maintain that consultant at least for another additional year. We should have a new contract. We have a new contract in place, and we'll be getting a consultant coming in January as well, when this current consultant contract ends. So that's really just been a priority. DCA has been super supportive of all of the changes that we've been making, giving us the time, because as I've shared in previous board meetings, that our IT is done on pro rata through DCA, and it is shared with all of the other boards and bureaus. So when we need an improvement, it goes into a queue with everybody else, and then it is prioritized and implemented. And we've had quite a few IT updates in the last few years, and we'll continue to move that forward. One of DCA's plans within their IT unit is called a Blitz to Zero, and that has been hugely helpful to us as they work through all of their processes to really kind of get everything implemented for each one of the boards and bureaus that they serve. So thank you, Tricia.
I have a question too, Lori. Do we anticipate that there'll be an additional audit in the future, or are those totally random, or are they some sort of a regular schedule typically?
There is not a regular schedule, but in my crystal ball, I do absolutely anticipate another audit coming through. That is kind of been kind of hinted to with a lot of the processes. With us not being able to readily clear recommendation 3 of the whistleblower audit, part of the communication that goes back and forth is that CSA wants to verify that that's been implemented and done correctly. So at that point, that tells me that in order to verify that that actually was done and implemented after that whistleblower report was there, is that they would come on site and they would open up another audit. That is enforcement focused, and that whistleblower audit was based on fraud. So as they've said on their website, it's difficult to trust the BRN when the BRN participated in that type of fraud. So even though there are new staff and better processes in place and a monitoring that's going on, it still has a relationship to rebuild and that trust that needs to be reestablished. And if I had to predict, I would predict that there would be an enforcement audit that would be coming back around and checking on us. Haven't received any communication regarding that, but we are absolutely ready for that if and when it comes. That was really one of the precipitating factors when we got the whistleblower request report that came through in June of 2020. And I had just started the acting role in February of 2020 and then assumed the EO position in June of 2020 myself. And when I received that, I met with DCA and agency BCHS and said, you know, I'm new to this role. I want to make sure that this is the only whistleblower that we receive on that audit. Can we go through and just double check everything? And so DCA did an internal audit for us, went through and checked all the processes that were reported out to the CSA on the 26 recommendations, and they were not able to find any other areas that it was evident that fraud was committed. And so that gave me a real sigh of relief when we came through that. But I also, with working with them, they said, you know, this would be a perfect time to start the OIO mapping and really kind of mark everything down, add training, make sure there's manuals and processes in place. And so we did embark on that. And that has been an ongoing process for several months now. So just really that way, if there is an audit, we have documentation, we have all this quality improvement stuff, and we're able to support that when requested. Is there anything more?
Any other questions? Okay, one thing, BRN moderator, Susan Naranjo is in the attendees. Can we elevate her to panelist, please?
And then board moderator, now that she is elevated, if you can open it up to public comment on the report of the executive officer, please.
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in the request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Board EO Melby, there are no public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please.
This is Reza. I have a quick question. I saw in the comments something about the phone line not working. I'm wondering if we have verified that or confirmed that that's not the case. Maybe we have individuals who've successfully been able to call in on the phone.
That was the wrong code. The meeting number is 2496-244-0863.
Okay, and I see what you just read off is what's actually
Is that was on there?
on the agenda.
Okay. Yes, that's correct.
The individual that typed in the comment in the chat, moderator, you mind pulling that up for just a moment?
Yes, they had 276-1747 for the meeting ID.
Oh, I see. Okay, so for clarification for that individual, the 2761747 is the event password, which hopefully you don't need. It should be pre-populated, as I understand. That's only there in case it's not pre-populated for some reason and you need to enter it in. But when you're asked for the meeting ID, please use the number that's there on the agenda as it's identified as the access code for the November 14th, today's meeting. Just wanted to address that. Thank you.
All right, moving on to sorry, we're in public comment. Is there any other?
No, that we closed it. She said I could close
Great.
it. There was no request.
Okay. Moving on to item 5.2, information only. Update on the 2018, 2021, and 2022 to 2025 strategic plan and goal progression. Lori?
Thank you. So the good news with the previous strategic plan is that with the update, there is only one goal that remains. So the entire 2018 to 2021 has been implemented and met. We did agree last year that we would do an annual update until all items were met. And the remaining goal is with goal 3, and that's the continuing education unit. And again, that cannot be met until we hire into that unit, build it, and staff it and train everybody on it. So it will be a process still. So that will not be cleared on the 2018-2021 update, but we are making strides to that. We did just get a retired annuitant who came back as a nursing education consultant, Shelley Ward. She has been approving the continuing education providers applications as they come through. That was a role that I served as a dual in my EO role and in that for the past couple of years as we had some vacancies within the NECs. So I'm very grateful she is in and on and assuming that role so I can no longer have to manage that. She is still in a mentoring process with me, but she is doing amazing as well, and I should be able to release her completely soon. So that would be fantastic. We do still have some long-term staff in there that are hugely supportive, but they are in need of more staff to be able to implement the plans as said in the goal 3 for continuing education. I'll move on to the current strategic plan. It is in our materials and available for you guys to review. There was a lot of movement over this last year. We have now had it implemented almost an entire year now since it, was developed between our board staff and our board. And so we implemented the beginning of that excuse me, at the beginning of January this last year. And as you go through in your materials, you'll find it under items for 5.0 and starting at page 26. And 26 on, you can see all of the completed activities and the ongoing activities of each one of the goals that we set. And if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them, but we tried to make it in a format that is easily able to kind of see the changes, that the completed activities, the ongoing activities, whether or not the status have been met, so that if anybody has any questions, they can do that. This will also eventually be added into our website for just a quick check, but right now it is only found in the goal progression, sorry, is only found in our board materials. But we will be creating a web page within our website as requested by the board admin committee. So that that is clear. It just has not been added to the website yet, but it will. Any questions on either of the strategic plans and goal progressions? And then just for clarification, both strategic plans are on our website. It's just the goal progression that is not updated and put in that same location.
This is Tricia. I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yes.
Just great job. I mean, it really is helpful to see, you know, every goal and every strategy broken down, and then, you know, some idea of like where you are in terms of implementation. It was very, very helpful. I know you developed the strategic plan right before I was appointed, so I wasn't a part of that, but it is very encouraging to see how hard you've been working at it. I just want to congratulate you all on that.
Thank you. And it's not because of me. I have an amazing team all the way down from everybody that is just doing the job day to day, all the way up towards me. You know, I always, when I go into the meetings, I still say, you know, let me know what I can do to serve you. Because without them doing the work, I can't make anything move. And so really, they've done such an amazing job at just educating me, teaching me their processes, inviting me into their meetings, and really sharing with me what they think would be an improvement, and what they've been doing long time, and really just kind of seeing what we can do moving forward. So a lot of really great support from my team. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Tricia said too. Thank you so much. It really is helpful to see the progress and for us to hold ourselves accountable to look at this. So, and lots of good work's being done. So kudos to you and your team, Lori.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
We can go out to public comment.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Sorry, we will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Board President Trujillo, there are no public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 5.3. This is information only. Registered Nursing Fund Condition, presentation by DCA Budget Office.
Hey, Suzanne, that's open to you. I'll let you go ahead and take it.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to present today. My name is Suzanne Balkis, and I am a budget analyst at DCA Budget Office. And I will be presenting the board fund condition that we currently have FM2 projections included into. For 21-22 actuals, we have a beginning balance of about 35 million with prior year adjustment of 1.3 million, which gives us an adjusted beginning balance of about 36.2 million. We have an overall revenue of 80.1 million, transferred to general fund AB 84 of 2.2 million, and a total expenditure of 58.2 million. That gives us a fund balance of about 56 million, which is 10.9 months in reserve. For current year, which is 22-23, we have our beginning balance of 56 million. We have projected total revenue of about 78 million, and we are tracking an overall projected FM2 expenditure of about 62 million. With that expenditure and revenue, we currently have a fund balance of about 72 million, which give you about 13.2 months in reserve. Budget year is based on Budget Act, and budget year +1 is based on Realize. We have no concern for the board, and I'm ready to answer any questions you have. Excuse me.
Thank you, Suzanne. My question would be, does any of this fund also go to support DCA in general, or is it just BRN?
So included into the budget, we have the pro rata, which it does include the something to come to DCA, but this is already included in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, seeing that there's no further questions or comments from the board, BRN moderator, we can open it up for public comment.
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I would like to give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Board President Trujillo, there are no public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. Seeing that this is information only and there's no vote that is needed, we will move on to item 5.4. This is also information only. Update on the board sunset bill, Assembly Bill 2684 from the regular from the session 2021 to 2022.
Thank you, Dolores. So AB 2684 nursing was our sunset bill, and it did not sunset us. We sunrose, so that's good. We're able to continue on until January 1 of 2027, absent any new legislation that would come in and extend us. We've been kind of talking about this throughout the entire session and really just kind of giving updates on that. So I did want to let you guys know that there was cleanup information that was put on there for our nurse practitioners on their pathway to independent practice. So that's for the 103 NP and the 104 NP that they're commonly referred to as. And so There was some cleanup with that. That got put through there. We did combining of license for both furnishing and the advanced practice license for the nurse midwife and the nurse practitioner. Based on the budget reports that we get that you guys just heard from Suzanne as well, is we went ahead and had the fee floors removed from all of the fees that were established within the BRN. That allows us in the future, as we look at some of the IT updates and we look at some of the changes in processes, to re-look at the fee associated with them. As we make them more automated and more use of IT versus a person, we could evaluate and see whether or not we can decrease those fees for everybody. The other thing that did allow us to do is because we did combine the furnishing license with the advanced practice license, that will have a fee decreases at that point too, because they would not be paying for 2 applications. They'll only be paying for the 1. So that was an ask from our board, and they were able to go ahead and do that. Our board also has several advisory committees. The Nurse Practitioner Advisory Committee and the Nurse Midwife Advisory Committee were 2 committees that were put into statute with the passing of AB 890 and SB 1237. So with that, in our sunset bill, they just added the Nurse Education Workforce Advisory Committee into statute as well. So that is a 3rd advisory committee that we do have. Currently, we do have 1 advisory committee, the APRN, that is not in statute, and we will discuss the future of that committee in a future agenda item today. So with that, they took the charter that we had developed. They added a Chancellor's Office representative for CSUs. That was a miss on our part, so they were able to fix that and correct it. And they're putting a focus on that workforce and education committee to look at clinical simulation and look at best practices. And they're also pivotal in the data collection that we do with UCSF and Joanne Spetz on our workforce and our schools. And so they'll give some great feedback into them as well. And the goal of that committee is to do 1 meeting a year focused on education and 1 meeting a year focused on workforce. We do know that they go hand in hand, and so there might be some additional items on each one of the agendas that will kind of overlap, but it's a great thing to have that committee established in statute. One of the other things that it did is our board voted this last year to change the requirement for 75% in direct patient care for our pre-licensure nursing education when in regards to the 5 nursing content areas: med-surg, OB, peds, psych, mental health, and GERI. And previously there was 18 semester units that were required, and 75% of those had to be done in direct patient care. Because of the 18 semester units being fluid, where you can have 1 school choose to do 4 units of pediatric clinicals and 1 school choosing to do 1 unit of pediatric clinicals, that 75% really was not equitable or any kind of standardization. And so our board earlier this year voted on language to go to a 500 direct patient care hour minimum for our schools. And that was actually, instead of going through the regulatory process as we had voted on it in our board to do, it was picked up in our sunset bill and put into statute. So we will not have to undergo the regulatory process to get that implemented. And that actually becomes effective in January. So our NECs will be working with our schools as they transition to that and supporting them through that process. It also opened up a pathway for schools to prepare LVN to RNs only. Previously in there, you had to have a generic track approval, which allowed for LVNs to be included in the enrollment, but they did have to have an availability for the courses that the LVN to RN may not be taking. And so with this, it is now able, as of January 1, that LVN to RN can be the only track that a school offers. And so that has been added and updated as well. The provisions that were put in place for AB 2288 during the state of emergency back in 2020 continue. And so just a little recap on that. In April of 2020, the DCA started implementing waivers. And there was some waivers where it lifted current regulatory guidance around our pre-licensure nursing education programs. AB 2288 took that and codified it in a bill, and when it was signed into effect, it went in to law, and there was an emergency clause put into our statute. It added to that where DCA's waiver decreased it down to 50% in direct patient care, and this further brought it down to 25% in direct patient care for OB, PEDS, and psych. Within OB, PEDS, and psych, it also had a provision that allowed for all of that to be done in telehealth or telemedicine. There was no in-person requirement for those specialty areas. And it added a concurrency requirement. Right now with the Board of Registered Nursing, and as with any science-based STEM education, it is evidence that it is imperative that the theory and clinical or laboratory sections go hand in hand, as it has a true symbiotic and reciprocal relationship. With this passing of 2288 and that emergency provision, it extended that to allow them to take clinical that was not able to be completed in a simulation or a skills lab to carry over to the immediate following semester or quarter. That provision was continued absent of the state of emergency. And so that was added into the sunset bill, and that concurrency requirement has that 1 semester leeway as long as everything is scheduled together and the attempt is done to have both simulation, skills lab, and the direct patient care clinical hours done all at the same time within that semester. And then with communication from the director to our NECs, there would be an allowance of any remaining direct patient care hours to be finished and finalized in the immediate next semester or quarter. That original state of emergency was extended to the end of this academic term. So in June of 2023, those provisions will no longer be there. The state of emergency is slotted to end at the end of February, and this allows them that semester to kind of finalize and wrap everything up. It also will allow them to implement the 500 direct patient care hours in January to allow for a smooth transition. It also gave me a large task as the executive officer to develop uniform methods for evaluating requests and granting approvals pursuant to that section. So I will be working on updating continuing approval, institutions seeking new approval, faculty approvals, facility approvals, anything that is approval based for our schools. I will get that developed. It'll go through a legal review, and it'll then be placed on our website and accessible to the public. The next thing that was codified was the process that our board NECs have been doing for about a year now, which was on our strategic plan as one of the items that was met. And that was doing the continuing approval with the accrediting agencies if the school is accredited. So they're out there doing them hand in hand. This is a evidence-based process that's been serving as best practice since for a while with other states. And it is supported by NCSBN, and there's guidance put out with that. And NCSBN is the National Council of State Boards of Nursing. So it was nice to be able to have that supported in legislation, and something that we will continue to move forward. And so that was updated as well. And I think those are the major sections that were updated. There were, again, some fee adjustments. Our major curriculum revisions will no longer have a fee associated with them. And the continuing approval visits that our NECs do will no longer have a fee associated with them as well. The fee that will come to us will come forward only on the substantive changes. And those are cleared in 16 CC, clearly defined, sorry, in 16 CCR 1432, one of the regulations that were just updated this year as well. So those are the big things for our sunset bill. We'll continue to implement and work with our deans and directors and any of our stakeholders to get that out and in compliance and ready for January. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from the board?
This is David. I have one question, Lori.
Yes.
Where you said that you have to create a uniform method for evaluating requests for changing in the programs, do you have a deadline when that has to be done by?
The bill becomes effective January. I'm really hoping that I can get that done by January. I've been working on it. A lot of these processes are already established, and so I just need to review them, clean them up, see if there's any processes that we can see that can be changed, and then just kind of move forward with them. So my goal is January. I'm going to try desperately to get that done. But if not, it will be in the first half of this next year.
That's very soon. I wish you luck.
Thank you. A lot of sleepless nights and weekend works will probably be what comes from that. And then just again, giving you a heads up, Reza, it'll all come to you once it's out of my hands. So I'll try to get that before the holidays for you.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the board? BRN moderator, can we open it up for public comment, please?
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give reminders as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Garrett Chan has a question. 1 second, please. Go ahead, sir.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Lori. This is Garrett Chan with Health Impact. Thanks, Lori, for that great review of AB 2684. I was just wondering if you could comment on the section of the bill that talks about payment for clinical placements. That would be incredibly helpful for clarity. So thank you.
Yes, the payment for clinical placements is within our pre-licensed nursing programs. That has been a complaint that has been received by our board for a few years. And that will actually now be investigated through our investigators. They may go out to DFI or even the AG's office, depending on what is discovered. There has been some concerns within the academic institutions that as clinical sites become more scarce or people become more desperate and the programs continue to grow, that there may be some unfair practices that are happening where clinical agencies are either requiring payment for nursing students to come on and participate, or that academic institutions are reaching out and offering payment in order to give them a priority clinical placement. And so that was part of that section in the code, and it is effective January 1, and that will be for our pre-licensure nursing education programs.
Thank you. There are no other public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, please. All right, this takes us to item 5.5. This is information only, discussion of NCLEX pass rates for academic years 2018, 2019 through 2021 and 2022. After we wrap up this last item for 5.0, we will take a very short bio break and come back to pull 7.1 forward.
Okay.
Lori?
And I believe the presenter is in the attendees. Board moderator, can you elevate her? And then while we take about a 5-minute bio break after this is done, it would be great to just do a mic and a check with her, and she will be utilizing the board moderator to run her slides, and she'll say next slide. And the presenter is Julie Morath, and she is in the attendees. And if you can elevate her and get her set while I go through the NCLEX pass rates. So on 5.5 in our materials, you will see an NCLEX agenda item summary starting at 49, but then a comparison that kind of goes over the coverage from page 50 on. We do have a regulation in the pre-licensure nursing education section of our California Code of Regulations 1432 that sets a minimum pass rate for first-time test takers at 75%. What that means is when a student graduates the school, that student takes the NCLEX in order to become a registered nurse. You cannot become a registered nurse unless you graduate from a board-approved nursing program by the state and then pass the national NCLEX. The goal for having 75% being the first-time pass rate is that a degree does not mean anything when it comes to nursing. That degree does not allow you to practice as a nurse. Passing the NCLEX allows you to practice as a nurse. And so part of the public protection is to, one, ensure that licensing standards have been met. That's what we set in 1426. And that a academic institution that delivers those, whether it's codified in a degree attainment, either an associate, a bachelor's, or an entry-level master's, that that academic institution delivers what they say that they're going to deliver, and that is adequate preparation to be a safe practicing nurse. That NCLEX pass rate is 75%. California usually does an amazing job at reaching that standard. And rarely we will have academic institutions that fall below that 75%. The first year, the nursing education works with them and they do an action plan, and they do some really good one-on-one work with them as a consultant and try to bring them back into the standard of greater than 75. If after 2 years, at the second year, they have another less than 75, the nursing education consultant will do a self-study report, which really dives into every single aspect that program utilizes. And they will do an on-site visit as well if that's been deemed, and they will try to work with them again to bring them into compliance. And one of our success stories with the school and all the dedication that school's done is the East LA College, and they're back in compliance, and we'll be bringing them forward this meeting to put them in full compliance with the continuing approval visit, continuing approval for the next 5 years. And so that's fantastic. But that's the process that our NECs use on a regular basis. When we started, I went to an NCSBN conference in Chicago where I met with all the other executive officers of the board. And because there was a lot of changes to the laws put into place through waivers and exceptions during the state of emergency, we talked about kind of tracking it from school to school to really show like what was the effect. 2018, 2019 academic years pre-COVID, and 2021, 2022 is kind of seen as the new normal, not necessarily post-COVID, but just the new normal. And so you'll see years 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 academic years really where our schools really had to just kind of come together, just really working with students, working with clinical sites, working with us just anything that they can do to get the students to progress and graduate. And that was also with the implementation of 2288 and our DCA waivers that decreased the standards of the education set by our board. And so you can see on that graph on the page 50 that all of the schools overall, our NCLEX pass rates went down over the years. And so we're hoping to see this starting to kind of come back up. But as you go through each page, you'll be able to see each school that is under board approval and see what they have done with their NCLEX pass rates over the last 4 years. Again, 2018 pre-COVID, 2021, 22, the new normal. You'll see the ADN programs are in blue, the BSN programs are in green, and the entry-level master's programs are in purple. So if you guys have any questions, any concerns, any thoughts, I'd like to open it up to you guys.
Lori, go ahead, David. I'll go after you.
I'm sorry, Dolores. I'm curious why they consider this the new normal as opposed to a reaction to the pandemic, considering every other education agency considers it not the new normal yet. And I'm also, this is more of a comment than a question, would love to see this in relation to a longer graph, like a longitude study where not just these 4 years, but how does this compare to the last 20? Does that make sense?
We can do that. And my chief of licensing probably just cringed right now when I said that, because she's been the one that's really been pivotal in helping me through this. But we do have the data. I think 10 years is usually kind of the goal that we kind of use. If you're okay with 10 years, I'd be happy to pull the data for 10. It will be interesting. There are a couple other hiccups that are coming through, and I can't really call them hiccups, but next year the NCLEX test is changing, and it'll be called the Next Gen, and that typically has an effect. And we probably won't see a big improvement for the first, couple years after that new NCLEX is there. But we can continue to track this. The new norm for us is, because we're healthcare and COVID's not going away. COVID's here to stay. It's not something that we're ever going to see really change. That's what's predicted. So is the guidance and the guidelines tend to be stabilizing. Even though the cases are rising, we're actually seeing more pediatric cases happening this year. The deaths are decreasing. And so those are some of the things that is what we're considering the new norm. A lot of the other changes that happen from going from an in-person format to an online format, a lot of people love those. And so some of the institutions are going to continue to do a hybrid model for theory. And so we'll see how that goes. But nursing education is not going to be the same. So a lot of focus on that, a lot of focus on what they can do to kind of update, ensure that minimum standards are met, support people through this. And just grateful that our clinical partners that the academic institutions have partnered with are starting to come back online. The biggest impact that really affected the California schools was that when COVID broke out, every single agency closed to the students. And the students were not able to do in-person clinicals for quite some time. And so with the help of CDPH, California Department of Public Health, because they have the oversight of healthcare facilities, the Board of Registered Nursing does not. They put out all facility letters, just please saying, use students, let them help. And those facilities started to open back up. What the schools have reported is that it hasn't gone back to pre-COVID levels. A lot of facilities would accommodate large clinical groups, 10 students at a time, 15 students at a time. And now the normal is about 5 or 6 students at a time. And so it does not look like it's going to open back up to 10 or greater students again. And so that, again, is one of the reasons why it's a new normal. So just adjusting and moving as things change. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Lori, I'm looking at some of these graphs, and some of them are very alarming. I guess one, I would ask, is there any correlation to the size of the university? And two, do we plan to follow up next year and see if there's been any improvement in some of these universities? Because some of them are really teetering close to 75%.
Yeah.
And
So
it's a cause for concern for me.
it definitely is a cause for concern, and that's really our NECs are assigned at each individual school. So each school has an NEC assigned to them. And our NECs work with the program director. They keep an eye on this. They check quarterly NCLEX rates. So they'll see some of these changes. They bring them forward to the board on the annual pass rates as per the policy, the regulation. And really kind of work with them hand in hand. Sometimes size is a benefit. If you have a lot of people, it tends to not make that percentage as glaring as if you would have a smaller amount of people. That percentage is truly glaring. You can see, I think there's one on there of Unitech, and it says 0 for 1 year. And that's because they had one student take the test and one student failed the test. And so that looks alarming, but it is one student. And so that would be much more alarming if it was 2,000 students and all 2,000 students failed to get a 0. So when you have a larger number, sometimes that is helpful because a couple students can fail the NCLEX on the first time and not have that much of a great effect on the percentage. One of the things that is something to take into consideration is if you have 100 students in the school and your pass rate 75%, 25 of those students did not pass the NCLEX and did not get licensed. And so that's something to take into consideration. 75 did. But those 25 have student loans that are coming due at the 6-month mark, and the NCLEX once taken cannot be retaken for another 3 months. So that means they cannot be employed as an RN. And even if they get an interim permit, that interim permit is only good until you fail the NCLEX. If you fail the NCLEX, that interim permit is no longer effective. You cannot continue to work on that. So you'll have to wait until you pass the NCLEX to get licensed. When you have a larger school of 2,000 and you have a 75% pass rate, if 25% fail, that's 500 students. Again, that shows a larger effect because of the sheer number. So it's different from 25 students to 500 students if you look at it per size. So hopefully that helps. Accrediting, they set their NCLEX first time pass rates at 80%. We set ours at 75. And nationwide, NCSBN's looking to see if the first time pass rate is really something that should be monitored, or maybe do a 2-time NCLEX pass rate to really have that monitored. So we'll see what that discussion happens and if any recommendations are changed, but currently it's still monitoring the 75%. But also that's a school indicator on whether or not the school is doing well. And that 75% is taken into consideration by our board and our NECs when looking at any kind of substantive change for like enrollment increase, growth, et cetera. Because that's one of those at-risk indicators, along with various other at-risk indicators. You don't want to actually grow attendance in a school that is showing that they're not doing that well. You would like that school to actually show that they're doing well, successfully graduating and having students pass the NCLEX and obtain jobs, and then increase enrollments at them. So it's not always resource-based. There are multiple other factors that are taken into consideration with that.
Thank you, Lori. Is there a plan for next year to continue? I would like to see next year's graphs.
We'll now extend it out on David's request to 10 years, and we'll just do a rolling 10 years.
Great.
So as we add 1 year, we'll drop 1 year, et cetera, and we'll just kind of do a rolling 10 years and track this as long as our board wants us to.
Yeah, wonderful information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Lori, based on your comment about, some of like the Unitech didn't have any students, was it possible to add the N to the different numbers so we have a sense of, how many students really were impacted?
Yes, we can do that. I'm not sure how to look on the grid, but at least we'll just put at least on the bottom. It will be different per year because they are academic terms. And as you guys know, as we continue to do enrollment increases and stuff like that, and throughout COVID, some of the schools voluntarily did some reduction in admissions or pauses because they didn't have the clinical sites to support. It will be a fluctuation from year to year, but we will add that to it.
Great.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question, Tricia Wen.
Yes, sure.
Thanks, Lori. This is so helpful. But in looking at some of the graphs, it does look like there were several schools, or a handful or less, that were doing pretty well and then have just had a dramatic nosedive, including one in my backyard. And I'm just kind of wondering. So I know an NEC is there and paying attention, but what can he or she do to kind of step in when a college or university is really experiencing? And I know COVID it played a role, so you can't ignore that, but I'm just kind of wondering, what kinds of things does the NEC do to help or counsel a program that's in trouble?
Yeah, so a lot of times NECs are reached out to and ask for assistance when when the program director runs into barriers at their institution level, either with admin not being incredibly supportive, not understanding some of the rules and regulations. One of the biggest things that our board does is monitor resources. So within resources, it says you must have faculty adequate in number. When you look at community colleges, which is different from private, and I'll kind of talk about both of them. At a private institution, if you need a new employee, it doesn't have to go through the several layers that a community college does. And so if you need a new employee, a lot of times at a private college, you just say, I need a new employee, and they're able to support that. Also with faculty, they have a greater ability to kind of match wages or adjust wages depending on their community standards for faculty wages and RN wages at a hospital site or something. Where community colleges don't have that ability. It is done on a state budget. They're funded through that way, or they get grants. With community colleges, the hiring goes into a pool, and you get priority based on all of the other programs that are within that community college. And a lot of times when faculty retire, they're not replaced or replaced in a timely fashion. And when there is a large turnover of faculty, a large turnover of program directors, assistant directors, and they're not replaced readily, that becomes problematic. And so the NEC is brought in a lot of that times to talk with the president, to talk about hiring committees and making faculty priority for our nursing programs, because we do have the authority to require that. And you guys will see that in conversations with East LA, where we're like, you guys need more faculty. You cannot have all your faculty teaching on an overload assignment. You have to have more faculty. You have to have some consultants coming in and assisting with you. We also, the NECs can identify curriculum that's out of date. That curriculum sometimes hasn't been updated in years. A major curriculum revision may not have come for 10 years. Well, healthcare changes. And so we need to go in there and kind of support them on that curricular change, work with them on best practices talk to them, sharing some of the examples from all the other schools that the NEC works with, to bring the curriculum up to standard as well. And NECs are expected to be experts in nursing curriculum also. And so they maintain that by working with NCSBN and all the schools. And so they can bring in some really good insight into what can be needed there. Any additional resources, getting an academic advisor that is nursing specific, getting a counselor that's nursing specific, looking at what the school can do to support the student, instead of having the student have a higher attrition rate where they drop out for personal reasons because school is just too much at that point. So just kind of looking at that whole entire process. Also helping them with clinical sites. They may be looking at acute care settings only. And we know that really healthcare is in the community as well. And so NECs can help brainstorm various clinical settings that might be appropriate to help them meet their objectives. And so really opening them up to the community setting to branch out and ensure that those objectives can be met so the students can be prepared. But there's a lot. It's so vast. It's not a simple one-sided answer, but that's where that expertise of the NEC really comes into play, and the support of their team to really kind of work together to share that and work with the schools.
That's very helpful, Lori. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Lori, I think that's also why.
Go ahead, David.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, I think that's also why it will be helpful to see, years out in the future as well, because like you just said, some of the impact here from the pandemic is possibly educators. Any impact on practice, let alone policy in the last 2 years, is gonna be felt or noticed on a graph for the next 5.
It will.
So that will be helpful to see that too. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Lori, this is
Yes,
Betty.
Betty.
And I have a question about the students. I know that you have a lot of contact with the institution. What about the students individually? Does the BRN have any contact with the students and questioning them on what they seem to feel is the issue of them not being able to pass the NCLEX?
Yeah, in prior years, it was our fault. It was the BRN's fault. We took too long to get them their authorization to test. And the great thing is we're removed completely out of that. So that's a good thing now that happens. Automated, it's completely a hands-off process with our licensing team, and they get their authorization to test within 24 hours of the dean or director confirming their degrees. And that goes to Pearson VUE and it's back. So in years past, that was a BRN barrier. In years now, we do meet. I meet, and our board president, past board president, past vice president, current board president, we've met with the California Nursing Association, a student nursing association, and had some meetings with them. They reach out on a regular basis. One of our NECs actually served as a liaison with the California Nursing Student Association, or I think even a board member of some sort. And so that was some really great input there. Having our phone numbers out and email addresses on our website has been helpful. We also have an information officer that kind of scours through social media, and so we watch input there as well. And our nursing educations, actually, the consultants set aside on every continuing approval visit meetings with students themselves only. And they do not allow for faculty to be present, campus administration to be present, only students, so they can get some unfiltered answers and responses. And that's very, very helpful. I've sat in on those when I was in NEC, and you'd learn so much at that point. And you could really give the school some input with that. And so the nursing educations have that. They also set up private appointments with students if they want to talk not within a group setting, and they can share information. And the deans and directors are encouraged to share the NEC's contact information with their school. A lot of times the schools have student representatives assigned for each one of the either years, academic years, or terms that kind of serve as a liaison, and they reach out to the NECs also. And then part of our requirements in regulation is that the student is involved in the curricular design, in the evaluation of. We take the students' feedback into consideration for clinicals, for faculty, all of that when the NECs are working with the program directors. So the students have a very large voice and they are communicative, which is great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. BRN moderator, can you please open it up for public comments?
We will be opening for public comment now. I will be activating the question and answer feature. Please refer to the screen share for members of the public to see how they should type in their request for comment. I've activated the question and answer feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by typing into the question box, "I would like to make a comment." Please remember, you will have 2 minutes to make your comments. I will not give a reminder as your time approaches. I do not want to interrupt you nor cause you to lose your train of thought. I will mute your microphone and inform you that your time has expired, and we'll move on to the next member of the public. I'll pause for a moment for members of the public to type in, "I would like to make a comment." Somebody typed in a comment. Hold on here. Let me see. Sengdao Pungs, would you like to make a comment? 1 second, please. Let me see if I can promote you. Hold on.
Board moderator, would you like me to read it? Are they not
Please,
able to?
please, they're not answering their unmute.
That's okay. There was a comment that was typed in by a Danilo Bernal. Says, any statistics regarding NCLEX takers from foreign educated nurses? Yes, we do have those. I can pull them. They're not included with this because this is just a report on the California board approved pre-licensure nursing programs. Our board of nursing does not approve any programs that are either out of state or international. And so those preparation of their nursing students are not under the jurisdiction of our BRN, and so we don't typically report out on those. We do specifically report out on the nursing programs that we have the jurisdiction over, and that is our pre-licensure nursing education institutions that are offered here in California.
I believe there's one more.
And that person got their unmute. Go ahead with your question or your comment.
Hi, I'm Sangdao Ponselinkam. I have a question. Has the passing rate declined overall since there have been more online program classes? Is there a correlation included in that part of the study or statistics?
Possibly. The problem with kind of differentiating anything out with that is there were so many changes that happened at one time. So it cannot be tracked down to one individual thing. With COVID, everybody went online. Everything went online immediately. The Department of Education at the federal level put out waivers as well, which allowed for all classes to go from brick and mortar on campus to an online format. Additionally, that also made all of the skills lab and the simulation labs to go 100% online as well. They were not going into an academic setting to practice any of the nursing skills or to do in-person high fidelity simulation. They were done online in formats similar to like Swift River, where everything was done in front of a computer on a keyboard with headset and mouse. And so it wasn't even like it was virtual reality or something at that point. Additionally, there was a large faculty exodus. And so with that, some faculty left out of fear of contracting COVID or being in high risk demographic. And so they were not able to be as participatory as they had in the past. And then the changes to our requirements through the DCA waiver, as well as through AB 2288, where we would require, at minimum 600 plus hours in direct patient care, and that got dramatically dropped down to about 300 hours in direct patient care. They were set on a curriculum that they had been instituting for quite a long time, but with working with the NECs, they moved that curriculum along because at the beginning, they thought that this would just be for the summer and that the fall would be fine. And so they moved courses forward that didn't have a clinical component and then would restart the clinical component. But also with the clinical agencies closing, that was a huge impact on any of the students progressing and graduating because they weren't able to go in person to get that hands-on exposure. And even when they were allowed to go back in, it was minimal involvement out of fear of exposure. They were managing through getting COVID vaccines. They were managing through getting clearances and such. And they were really just jumping in at the program director level, trying to identify alternative clinical placements and where can they serve the need. And some of that was just in COVID vaccine clinics, et cetera. So there's just really too much of an impact with a multitude of different variables coming in at the same time to be able to do an accurate correlation. But we are looking at that. UCSD, which is our contracted data provider, asked a bunch of COVID questions as part of their pre-licensure nursing program evaluations. And they're getting information back on that. We hope to have some really good longitudinal studies to be able to share with you on different effects.
Board President Trujillo, there are no other public requests for comment. Would you like me to close this window?
Yes, thank you. All right, we'll take a break until 10:45. And that'll give us some time to get Heather on and get her up to the mic.
We'll actually reorder, Dolores, if you can put 7.1.
7.1.
That's the presentation from Julie Morath, and she is in the attendees and ready to go.
That's
So
right.
that will be the first agenda item taken when we come back at 10:45.
All right. We'll see.
Sorry, this is Reza. Regarding the reordering, I just also wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, as a side note, I believe Heather is in our attendees, so she can be promoted by our moderator. And then the Julie Morath presentation will take place next. And then are we going to go to the NPAC, the advisory committee reports before returning to items 6.1 and 6.2? Is that the intent?
I don't think that was. I think we were just going to go right into 6.1 since Heather was available. But if you had a request to go into 7.2 agenda item first before going back in, we could. But
I think
I don't know that was the plan.
Okay, my understanding was different. I think that we were going to allow the NPAC committee to do the report or do the NPAC committee report before discussing 6.1 and 6.2.
No, that was changed.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Reza.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Everybody back at 10:45.
Julie, if you wanted to do a video and a mic check, we can do that right now.
All right, I just unmuted and I'm open the video.
Perfect. You're
There
a
I am.
star.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I just know you as BRN moderator. What your name, please?
Mark.
Hi, Mark. It seemed a little impersonal. What
It's fine.
I'm going to make some preliminary comments, so I'll be pausing on the first two slides, and then after that, I'll move at a pretty rapid clip. But I will always say, next slide, please.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And we have your presentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, we do, Mark. Thank
Okay.
you.
Perfect.
It's in the
Well,
material.
you just gave me a little heart
Oh,
attack.
no. Sorry. I was just going to message the presenter, but yes. Perfect. So
Okay.
perfect. Yes. Next
Great.
slide, and then we'll advance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.